So, some new revelations from the US government. They say, actually, lab leak, yep, it seems to be the most likely one from the Energy Department, and apparently the FBI. Didn't take a genius, Ryan. We've both been covering this now for a long time. But a lot of journalists and other prominent figures in the media humiliated themselves on this subject. And let's just say we're going to keep some of the receipts. You know, why not? Let's put this up there on the screen. So, what do we got? Oh, very interesting. So, here you have Tom Nichols, the so-called death of expertise guy, saying arguing with the conspiracy theorists rarely goes well. It gives people advancing a theory to keep repeating it as just a hypothesis, as Cotton does here. Every time you ask him, he'll repeat it, say it's unlikely, and just say he's asking questions. Well, you know, Cotton wasn't correct that it was a bioweapons program, but he does appear to have been correct that it did come from a actual Wuhan Institute of Virology, where the U.S. government now claims, with the intelligence points to. However, go ahead.
Well, there is evidence that there was a bioweapons program.
Yeah, that's right. But that COVID wasn't part of it, right? Good point.
We don't know.
Yes.
We don't know. And we certainly can't go, there's no reason to go there.
I will not say that it is part of it yet.
But it could also be part of a bioweapons program and be an accidental leak. Like whenever people hear bioweapons program, then they think, oh no, well then it was an intentional. But DARPA, they went for DARPA funding, which they call biodefense. And if it came out of that kind of recipe that was created for the DARPA application, then that would actually make it part of like a defense or offensive operation. But it's still an accident. It doesn't necessarily mean it.
Right, and then my personal favorite is Anne Applebaum, who said for Tom Cotton, wow, this is just like Soviet propagandists who tried to convince the world the CIA invented AIDS. Anne Applebaum is literally on the board of global disinformation in trying to dismantle. So that's interesting. And what does this show you? You know, you have the ambassador, the Chinese ambassador that Face the Nation had on their program saying that it was a conspiracy theory. And then you also had CNN saying, quote, fact-checking Tom Cotton's claims about the coronavirus. I mean, all of these people absolutely beclown themselves in retrospect. Even saw Mehdi Hassan yesterday saying, it's not our fault that we labeled this conspiracy theorist. It's the conspiracy theorist's fault for co-opting what was a genuine theory called lab leak. And it's like, well, maybe you're not supposed to use your personal feelings against Trump or somebody who's saying China virus or whatever to keep away from the facts of what's been happening here. That's actually, I've very much appreciated The Intercept on this. I know Mara, you know, who I've talked to before, I mean, she's not like some China hawk or whatever. She just always wanted to get to the bottom of this. And what did we learn from those documents, from the FOIA documents on the EcoHealth Alliance and the NIH and how they were circumventing their own procedures and how we've been pouring millions of dollars of funding into this lab. Like that alone should just be the scandal, period. Doesn't have to be political.
Yeah, and that's what makes me so proud of The Intercept's reporting, because we actually didn't go into it with like an agenda one way or the other.
Here, like what's going on?
We were like, this is a real open question. What documents can we find that can shed some light on this question? And that's what it ought to be. Because it also never, and by the way, in Mehdi's defense, he's as far as I know, the only cable host who actually pressed Fauci on this.
That's true.
And you know, Fauci did his ducking and dodging, but he did say, like, The Intercept has reported this, you've said this, and but it never made sense to me, and maybe you could unpack some of it for me, how this became so partisan. Because, like, I understand why, if you're doing research about the effect of the minimum wage, on, say, joblessness, that people who oppose a minimum wage will see in the data that it raises unemployment, and then they'll have their talking points, and people who support the minimum wage will find their own studies. Like, I understand how that epistemologically kind of devolves into a partisan fight. This, what? Like, how is this democratic?
Look, it's simple, and it came from day one. Nancy Pelosi, remember, saying we can't discriminate against Chinatown, walking around in February.
But she's the biggest hawk. Chinatown in San Francisco, saying that it was sparking hate crime.
It became an anti-Asian hate thing. And look, I'm not saying that there hasn't been violent crimes against Asian people, although, you know, a lot of that is product of just violent crime in San Francisco and New York. Some people don't really like to talk about that one. But the point that I'm making is that it became immediately that the idea was, if we acknowledge this, if we talk about it, it's racist against Asian people in America, which, of course, is ludicrous.
And the part to me that didn't make sense about that is that the non-bigoted explanation was that it was actually these rural redneck Chinese who were eating bat soup.
Right, yeah, you're right, yeah.
That to me
Crystal talks about that all the time. She's like, so it's less racist to say that these like peasant Chinese were eating bat soup at wet markets, which apparently is not that common of a phenomenon.
Right, and Wuhan is like a city of like 20 million people.
Yes,
it's super sophisticated.
Huge, yeah.
But we played on these tropes and these bigotries that Western people have about rural Chinese people to say, oh, it's the bats. Yeah. You know those Chinese people always eating those bats? That's the woke answer.
Right. Listen.
But like that we were doing joint US and Chinese research in a lab right near there, and there was an accident. That's the bigoted explanation.
Yeah, The whole thing is ridiculous. And from day one, so many of these reporters, the New York Times, Don McNeil straight up admitted he didn't take lab leaks seriously because he trusted Dr. Fauci, as we've been talking about. And a lot of these people have egg on their face. Beyond that, a lot of the social media censors have to straight up need to apologize to many of the figures who were deplatformed and smeared as conspiracy theory. It took a long time until you were able to talk about this.
Wasn't Facebook like taking your account down?
Yes, Twitter did it as well. They took down the Zero Hedge account for talking about the bioweapons thesis. And that's, look, from day one, it was like, well, the lab is there, and they were studying bat coronaviruses. Maybe it came out of there. Oh, it turns out it's not consistent with evolution. Like every scrap of evidence from day one has pointed to the Wuhan lab. In my opinion, you had to be an idiot to believe the natural origin thesis outside of 2 months into it, when we already knew from independent analysis that the furin cleavage site looked like it was inserted into the virus. That's it. Pack it up and go home.
Well, that's why in early February you had that conference call with these scientists who are
Anderson and all these people
who are now like the most outspoken opponents of the idea, saying all this looks like it came from the lab. Like as we look at the cleavage site, as we look at the relationship here, like to me, some guys are saying I'm 70-30 lab, I'm 60-40 lab, I'm 50-50 lab. Like some saying I can't see any explanation for how this has a natural origin. Those same dudes then, like 3 days later, are organizing a letter saying that the science is settled on this.
Well, it's certainly settled now, I think. Maybe we'll find out.
Not quite. It's still not quite like there's. Well,
the smoking gun is dead because they covered it up. It's gone.
And people say we'll never know, and I just don't know if that's true. Like I still do think that we could know. Like there still could be. There's evidence that the NIH and that the U.S. has access to that has not been revealed yet, related to Ralph Barrick's lab and some other places. So it's not just the Chinese, who have a lack of transparency on this, and maybe we will get something more out of China. I think it's too early to say that we'll never know.
Okay, well, I hope so. At this point, personally, I got all I need.
Yeah, I
think most people should.
I'm pretty confident.
Yes. I barely even say hypothesis anymore because I'm like, at this point, the natural origin hypothesis is the one that's bunk. Like it has far less evidence on its side. But we'll let the rest of the mainstream catch up with that one, and we will see you guys later.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.